unfortunately, one of my last plasma donations did not go very well, and I'm going to tell you what happened, but I also wanted to make this video to give you some advice on how you can avoid passing out or some of the negative things that can happen as a side effect of donating plasma. And a lot of it comes down to preparation, but some of it is completely out of your hands. And so this will also hopefully serve as a warning if you're considering donating plasma. I will say, for the vast majority of people, it's totally fine. It's very controlled. They know what they're doing. You shouldn't have a very bad experience. And if you do, they're really uncommon. But let's get to the story. So I went in to donate plasma. I ate food a couple hours before. I probably should have eaten a little closer to when I donated, just to be sure. But I hydrated well. I felt good. Didn't feel sick or anything. You're not supposed to donate if you feel sick. Pretty normal donation. Everything was going fine, and actually it's been a really long time since I felt sick or nauseous or felt like I might be starting to go toward passing out, being hooked up to a machine. That has happened to me before. Usually for me, the onset of those symptoms is quite slow, at least slow enough that I can get someone's attention and they can slow down the machine and get me an ice pack, raise my feet, things like that to help me to recover and not pass out. For some people, and these people probably aren't great candidates for donating plasma, they just pass out real quick. And that usually comes down to a fear of needles, really sensitive to blood, things like that. But anyway, this was a very normal donation. Everything was going fine. I finished the donation. They bandaged me up and I started to leave. And this is where things got bad. And to tell you a little bit about myself, I wouldn't say I'm particularly sensitive to blood. Like in biology, I've watched an open heart surgery, video of it, and I've seen, things with blood before, okay? It doesn't affect me too much normally. Now, I've also donated plasma quite a bit, and I've gotten used to my own blood as well, at least in a controlled environment. When I am exposed to my own blood in a not controlled situation, that's when physiologically my body freaks out. And it's not like I start having a panic attack, it's completely involuntary. Like mentally, I'm like, this is fine, this isn't normal, but it'll be taken care of, it's not threatening. But there's some things physiologically that your body reacts the way that it does, and you don't really have a lot of control over it. So in this instance, the bandage wasn't put on tight enough, and it's hard to tell sometimes because it all kind of feels the same when they put the bandage on. And I noticed that I was starting to bleed through. And that's happened to me before too, and that's a little alarming to me, but because I've had prior experience, I was like, okay, it's gonna be fine. I press down on it to try and apply more pressure and start walking back, and it bleeds through a lot. Like, it's soaked and starts dripping. And sorry if this is making some of you that are more squeamish feel gross, but so it was bleeding quite a bit. They had me lean over a trash can while they had somebody come over to rewrap me. And at this point, I'm like, oh, that's a lot more blood than I was expecting. So when I was leaning over the trash can, I was really putting my weight on it. And I had a heavy backpack that was just dangling off me at this point, and I'm just like not feeling good. Like I felt cold. I was getting cold sweats. It was kind of clammy. It was like my body felt warm, but at the same time, not warm enough to be sweating at the amount that I was starting to. Just those prerequisites to actually passing out. And so they came over and someone started supporting me, and they brought a chair over so that I could sit down. And then they wanted me to hobble over to a bed if I could make it to a bed. So long story short, applying pressure didn't seem to do anything at first. But when they did eventually take off the bandage, and I think that my blood pressure dropped quite a bit because I was getting close to passing out, that when they removed the bandage, I was scared that it was just going to be flowing freely, that it actually wasn't bleeding too quickly. They were able to put more gauze and bandage it up. But now they had to treat, my low blood pressure and other symptoms that I was experiencing. So they took me to this bed, put an ice pack on me, raised my feet, and just kept taking my blood pressure over and over. And I was talking to me and trying to get a gauge for how I was feeling. And I'm just kind of annoyed at this point because I'm like, look, I've had experiences like this before where I've almost passed out. They usually just give me a Gatorade and a granola bar and have me sit for a minute and I'm gonna be fine. And they're like, no, we need to put saline in you. That'll help fix you up really quick. And I'm like, come on, I don't wanna get poked again. I just got saline from the return normally in the donation. And they insisted, and this really was annoying to me because I've only ever had my right arm poked with the needle. Now they had to find a vein in my left arm that's never been used to get any sort of IV or anything like that. So they unfortunately, well, it worked out fine, but it was annoying because I didn't want them to. But against my will, they put saline in me and it did help me feel better, but I had to stick around for an extra half hour for that to process to go through. And then they gave me a Gatorade and a granola bar and had me sit. And I understand they have to cover their butts so something doesn't happen to me when I go drive away. I just wish it was made less of a deal because it's kind of embarrassing when you're the one that's like in the middle of the center bleeding through your bandage and then almost passing out. So that's the gist of what happened. Nothing bad came of it. It is an experience I've had before where I felt like I was going to pass out and I knew how to deal with it. I just didn't like that it was kind of like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. We're gonna do this. You can't just have a Gatorade. So that was bothersome, and it really doesn't feel good to feel that kind of sick, like your body's shutting down. So I want to help you avoid that. And so what I would recommend, and what they told me, and I'm doing this every time from now on, I'm gonna ask for double gauze. And what that does is, I mean, it seems obvious, it's like, oh, it's just soak up more blood. Well, the idea is that they put the gauze right over the site of where the needle was, and normally it's just, you know, 1 or 2 gauze pads. And if you do double, and they usually fold it up, but that's gonna put more pressure on that site right off the bat, even if it's not wrapped super snug, because that, I mean, with the wrap pressing down the gauze right on that area, if it's double the thickness, then you can figure out, obviously that's applying more pressure. And I'm gonna tell them to wrap it tight. There's been very few times where it's been wrapped where I'm like, I might need to loosen this, it's cutting off my circulation. And I honestly, I mean, maybe it's stupid, but I prefer to have my arm be a little bit tingly than bleed through my bandage and get blood everywhere. Obviously, you don't have to have either of those. We're looking for a happy medium, but double the gauze and asking them to make sure the wrap is snug. If you have a tendency for bleeding through, I hope this hasn't happened to you, but that's a really good idea, and they'll do it for you. They want to make sure that you're okay after you leave. Something I hinted at the beginning of the video that you can also do to avoid feeling sick while donating, making sure you're really well hydrated, making sure you've eaten close to your donation. You want to make sure you've eaten within 2 hours, I'd say, of going. High protein meal, something with substance, not just like light carbs or something like that. You want to make sure that you've got food in your stomach, and make sure you get some sleep, adequate sleep the night before. That'll help. Avoid caffeine and alcohol, things like that. Another thing to consider is if you've never donated plasma before, and I know this doesn't help with gearing you up and motivating you to go for the first time, but more likely than not, your first experience will be the worst. It doesn't have to be if you prepare really well, but just because your body's not used to it. And so if you've never done a blood donation or a plasma donation before, just having fluids taken in and out of your body, and it's not supposed to be a very intense procedure, but that just can be shocking and the body can freak out. And if you're more predisposed to be squeamish around blood or needles, then that's something to consider. But I do believe it's something you can definitely adapt to and get used to, but it's definitely worth preparing and taking the proper precautions. And these plasma centers have plenty of literature to help you to be ready and avoid some of those negative things. They have you sign waivers galore and consent to donate after you've been educated on all of the following things that could happen. And I've never seen anything worse than somebody passing out, and normally it's on the bed. I've never seen anybody pass out after getting up, but they have policies and procedures in place to protect you as the donor. They don't want lawsuits on their hands. They want people to keep coming, and it is a really safe and controlled procedure. Thousands and thousands of people do it every day. So I hope this was informative. I know it was kind of a story, kind of a rant, but it's been on my mind because that was not a fun experience. If you've had any crazy plasma experiences, you should definitely share them in the comments below. If you have any questions about plasma, comment that as well. I make a lot of videos about donating plasma. I'm going to try and expand my horizons and make more videos for you guys that I think you'll enjoy, along the lines of ways you can make extra money on the side. I mean, we all need that with inflation and everything the way it is these days. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.